So in this lesson, lesson number 2 of integers, we're going to pick up where we left off in our discussion in class. What we discussed in class was regarding adding integers, and more specifically, getting used to using the scoreboard method as a way of adding integers. What we now want to do is expand the discussion into subtracting. And subtraction can sometimes cause some confusion, particularly when we're dealing with a combination of positive and negatives. So what we'd like to do is to be able to convert any subtraction problem, any subtraction expression into an equivalent expression using addition. And the way we do that is through a process called keep, change, opposite. Now, some of you are probably familiar with this process already. So if it is review, that's okay. I think the review will do you good. For those of you that aren't familiar with it, I think you're going to learn to like it because it will reduce the confusion that is associated with subtraction and get us into a much more comfortable world in which we deal only with addition. So keep change opposite, or KCO, has us do exactly what it says. When I look at an expression like 46 minus negative 19, I'm going to start by keeping the first number. So I'm going to say 46. And instead of subtraction, I'm going to change. I'm going to change to addition. And by changing from subtraction to addition, I'm now going to take the opposite of the number that follows. So instead of saying minus negative 19, I'm going to take the opposite of 19 and say 19. So 46 plus 19, using keep change opposite, or KCO, 46 plus 19 is equivalent to 46 minus negative 19. And I think we would all agree that looking at this as an addition problem is going to be much more straightforward and less confusing. So let's continue rewriting each of these expressions, converting them from subtraction to addition using KCO, and then we'll actually move back into using the scoreboard. That's what we were practicing in class, where we can now deal with the addition of the numbers. So let's see. Moving on to negative 15 minus 18. Again, we're going to keep the first number, negative 15. We're going to change the subtraction to addition. But now we're going to add the opposite. So a minute ago, we're subtracting 18. So what we have to do is add the opposite of 18, which is negative 18. So negative 15 plus negative 18 is a much easier way and an equivalent way of dealing with the expression negative 15 minus 18. So if we move on down the line, the next one, 17 minus 23, the 17 we're going to keep. The subtraction we're going to change to addition. And the 23 we're going to convert to the opposite, or negative 23. So the expression we will now be moving forward with adding when we move on to the scoreboard is 17 plus negative 23. And the last expression, we're going to keep the negative 56. We're going to change the subtraction to addition. And we're going to add the opposite of negative 27, which is positive 27. So now what we can do is to continue with the second step. We can take each of these expressions and simply set up a scoreboard. So I'm just going to rewrite all these expressions down below. 46 plus 19, negative 15 plus negative 18. I'm just copying what was up above. Down here where we have more workspace, 17 plus negative 23, and negative 56 plus 27. And we're just going to go about using the scoreboard. So don't forget the scoreboard, we set up a simple little T-chart. I like to show the negative numbers on the left, the positive numbers on the right. And as long as we're dealing with addition, which now we are, we're able to use a scoreboard. So notice everything is an addition problem because we used keep change opposite. So everything is an addition problem. So remember the rules we talked about for setting up the scoreboard. If a number is positive, it goes in the positive column. If it's negative, it goes in the negative column. So here I can see that 46 is positive, 19 is positive. The second rule is that if the numbers are in the same column, I simply add, and I make sure to recognize my answer is going to be positive. So in this case, because both numbers are positive, I'm going to add the two numbers up. So 9 plus 6 is 15. I'll carry the 1. 4 plus 1 is 5, plus another 1 is 6. Our final answer is positive 65. Now, we could have done that without the scoreboard, but for practice, it's helpful to do it. And again, the scoreboard is going to be more useful when we're dealing with adding negatives or particularly adding positives and negatives. So 46 plus 19, we get an outcome of 65. So if we move on to the next example, setting up our scoreboard, I'm going to note that the 15 being negative is going to go on the negative side. The 18 being negative is going to be on the negative side. And because these numbers are in the same column, once again, we're going to add them. But here's where we need to be careful. Because it's a negative answer, we're going to want to make sure we include the negative sign in our answer. So now we can just add the two numbers in the negative column. 8 plus 5 should give us 13, so we carry the 1. 1 plus 1 is 2, and another carried 1 is 3. And don't forget, we basically converted this to adding two negatives, so our answer is going to be negative 33. So these are both examples of same sign problems, where we simply just added and carried the sign. The next two, you can see the signs are going to be different. So this is where the scoreboard definitely comes in handy. So we're going to set up our scoreboard, make note at the top of our negative and our positive, and we're going to list the numbers where they belong. So 17 being positive, I know I put on the positive side. 23 being negative, I know I put on the negative side. Now don't forget, this is where we're going to have to track the sign of the quote-unquote bigger number. And the bigger number meaning the one that's further away from 0. So we can see that this is bigger, right? Negative 23 is further away from 0 than positive 17. So that sign wins. So we know we're going to have a negative answer, and that negative answer is going to be the result of going the big number minus the small number. And don't forget, our answer is going to have to be negative. So I'm going to bring that negative sign down so I don't forget about it. There it is. So we have a little borrowing to do. Cross out, borrow from the 2, bring it down to a 1, carry a 1, or borrow a 1. Now we do 13 minus 7 is 6. 1 minus 1 is 0. So our final answer is negative 6. So again, we started with a problem that was subtraction that looked confusing to us potentially, 17 minus 23. We did keep change opposite, and we turned that into an expression with addition of 17 plus negative 23. And because we're getting familiar with using the scoreboard, we set the scoreboard up since it's now an addition problem. And because the numbers are in different columns, we knew to subtract, and we took the sign of the bigger number in this case. So it looks like we're going to have to do that one last time. So let's do this. So we'll set up the scoreboard. I know my 56 is negative, so it goes on the negative side. My 27 is positive. I can see the 56 is the more negative number. The 56 is the bigger number, and it happens to be negative. And because my numbers are in different columns, I'm going to subtract. Remember, it's always big minus small. That's the only way we can subtract appropriately. And don't forget, our sign is going to be negative, so let's subtract. Some borrowing again. Borrow from the 5. Bring the 1 over. 16 minus 7 is 9. 4 minus 2 is 2. And don't forget, our answer is negative. So negative 56 plus 27 The equivalent version after keep change opposite of negative 56 minus negative 27 equals negative 29. These two problems are the different sign problems. So you notice we use the scoreboard differently, okay? So if we can be comfortable using the scoreboard, as long as we're dealing with an addition problem, we can be comfortable converting any subtraction problem to addition problem, then these types of expressions should become much more manageable. So that's it for today's notes. Go back to Classroom and do the Google form, and we will do practice in class tomorrow.